All right. Well, now's the time when we bring on our guest speaker for tonight and our guest presenter tonight. Carl's actually been on before, I think, so maybe, I don't know, so 3 years ago, 3 years ago. And he was talking about quite a different topic tonight, but yet it's still related. It was about storytelling. He's not only is he a master storyteller and author, he's a videographer and a photographer as well. So he's telling stories, through visual means as well as text means. And if you have a look at his background there, that is part of his story as well too. And I'm sure he's probably going to go into part of that as well. But for those of you that haven't met Kyle before, Kyle is over on the western side of Australia, so it's still daytime for him over there. He is a best-selling author. His book is his memoir, Decide Your Destiny, and it's topped the bestseller lists worldwide. So he's done an incredible job with that. And I've seen him sort of on social media. He's relentless. Talking about it, it is a passion project for him as well. So when you do follow him on social media, you will see that he is relentless with it, and he interviews some interesting people, and they tell their stories as well too. He is a coach to help people to connect with their inner calling. He's had many, many years in sales, marketing, operations, and so he's been able to weave this here into what he does in his career as well too. As I say, he is a photographer, videographer. He's also a trainer as well. And he's also been worked on some multi-million-dollar sets with brands like Commonwealth, NRMA, Qantas, Wallabies. So, that's been part of, his corporate experience as well. So he's in small business and he's worked in that corporate world as well too. So, but he does believe in a very client-centric approach. And stories is very much part of that these days as well too. So I'd like you to give a big warm welcome to Kyle Spyrides.
Thank you, Nick. Really appreciate it, mate. Good to be back on. And yeah, I think it's like many things in our own story, in our own lives, it's a development into that next phase. So I think the last one I was talking about how to take professional looking photographs with your phone, which was a big question during COVID from a lot of the clients I had back then. So yeah, so today I wanted to talk about clarifying your visual story. I'm going to try the good old share button and hope for the best. Here we go. Let's see if that works. Alrighty. So today I wanted to talk about clarifying your visual destiny. So we've talked about video, and we've got some amazing video apps as well today. And we've talked about tools. We've talked about, well, Nick's told me a little bit about his sales background and his history and kind of little teasers. And so I'm curious to find out a little bit more about his sales history. And on the live today, Nick was talking about, not just leading with facts, but leading with story as well. So a little bit on that note, a little bit about my story. I originally was born in South Africa, Johannesburg. When I was 2.5, came to Australia and was brought over here. And my grandparents, my grandmother, my step-grandmother, she said she saw me, this little lost kid, walking up the stairs in her home. And our eyes connected, and she said she had this overwhelming feeling shoot through her body from God that she was going to be important in my life. And then 14 years later, when I didn't have anywhere to go, or I didn't have anyone guiding me, my grandmother and my grandparents were that safe haven that I could go to. So they're a big part of my story, and as you can see in the backdrop, they're a big part of who I am today. And I liken it maybe a little bit, a way of thinking of it in more of the mainstream. A lot of people know the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've got a bit of a setup. Good parents, or good grandparents, not so good parent upbringing. So for me, and I think for a lot of kids coming through our generation, it's not a clear path, to be guided to have parents for parenthood these days. You got a lot of families that have stepbrothers, stepsisters, and intermingling, but finding a way to find a guide and someone who's going to love you and care for you and lead you along your destiny has been something that's really important to me, and a message that I want to get out and help others and the younger generation, because with each generation, there's new challenges. Looking at some of the tools and tips that Nick shared, I mean, it's never been easier to create a business. It's never been easier to plan a trip, to do many of these different things, to edit a video, to create a course. But like that book that you shared right at the end, Nick, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to commit and follow through with it. And so we will have our own challenges. And I think the first step really is identifying those challenges. So identifying what the challenges are of our generation, for the younger generation, and also what are the challenges in our business. I think if we're really strong at something, like for me, Nick was saying, I'm really good at getting on social media, getting online, getting out there. If you're really, really strong in one area, not overcompensating, but you're going all in one area, there's probably other areas that you need to work on. And I think that's just part of the journey along our business journey. And that's why it's great to be a part of communities like this. So as a kid, I was very animated, full of wonder, full of curiosity. And in the book that I wrote, Decide Your Destiny, the first 3 chapters and the exercises, so it's 22 chapters and there's an exercise at the end of every chapter. I talk about that. I talk about pulling out, the 5 key childlike characteristics that you had. What were some of the childlike kind of characteristics that really made you get what you wanted when you were younger? What were some of those characteristics that made you relentless, that made you curious? You had wonder about the world. Nick putting this on for us and looking at all these tools and his commitment to his business, you can see he's got wonder, and that's that young kid that's got that wonder, that curiosity, that beaming light in them. And we go through life, we have some experiences that burn us, we touch the hot pot burns us, and we go back into our shell. Now, for me, whenever I went back into my shell, whenever I, belt up, shut up, as my grandfather would say when we get in the car, when I go back into that shell and suppress emotions, suppress myself, suppress my creativity and let me try and attempt things, regardless of failure and embarrassment. Whenever I'd go into that shell, I'd actually develop a sickness, or I'd develop a dis-ease, or I'd develop problems in my life. So for me, whether you've got a bad attitude or you've had a bad day or something like that, trying to go back to expansion mindset, trying to go back to, how can I expand over this? How can I be bigger than life right now? How can I be bigger than my circumstance? Who can I help right now? That has always put me in good stead. And I had my grandmother, who, another quote along that lines, who would always say, let go and let God. And she had a strong faith, never a heavy religious faith, but just a strong belief. And for me, it's always been important to have a stronger belief in something. And what that is for you, you will decide. And for me, it was just nice to have grandparents around me that had a strong faith that saw them through a world that I could never imagine as a youngster. So, yeah. And my grandfather had a great quote saying, get on with it. No complaining, no explaining. Doesn't mean he was a hard man. He was a very gentle soul, and he loved, connecting with young kids, and he found women super interesting, and because we had a lot of women in our family and cousins and aunties, but the no complaining, no explaining was just kind of sitting down with yourself and going, well, what can I do? I can kind of bake in this problem, or I can actually start taking the steps towards the solution. So when I was younger, and when I first got into photography, and I was doing my graduating project, it was soul gazing photography that I chose for the business name, but what I chose as a project. The belief was that if you could sit down and basically sit opposite someone, talk to them for a long enough amount of time, chat to them layer by layer, onion by onion. You hear that Shrek quote in the Shrek movie, onions, layer by layer, you just chat, you let them express themselves. Eventually, I felt that they would show their soul. They would show who they are. They'd reveal their true self, their true nature, their true core. And so in photography, that's what I was going for in my imagery. I was wanting to, like this one of my grandfather in the beret, you know, I came back from shooting the sunset, and then I was sitting down editing the photos, and as we all do, getting stuck into the work and that tunnel vision. And he came down the stairs and he said, "Oh, righto, Kyle, what's going on?" And I looked up at him, and then I took a double take, and he was standing there with his beret, and the light was coming in one side of the face, so it was split lighting. But I just saw this image, and I just sat there having a conversation for a while. And then bit by bit, I felt like him as the architect, as the observer, as a bit of a stoic nature came through in that image. So same thing in our own business, you know, bit by bit, anything that we're trying to work out and understand as we're paving our own destiny, bit by bit, just ask that next question, dive a bit deeper, dive a bit deeper. The true core and the true juice, you know, the pip is in the middle of the fruit. The true juice is deeper and deeper and deeper. So same thing when you learn something. You know, you learn something once, you learn something twice, you learn something 3 times. On the 5th time, you suddenly realize what you learned, you know, and you are missing a whole bunch of what you've been learning the whole time. So layer by layer, deeper and deeper, and you'll get to some great content in your life. So the first part of deciding your visual story, the story that you want to create online and you want to create in the world, really is the purpose. So you've got to work out what is the purpose of what you're trying to create. If you don't have a strong purpose, as Nick was sharing, if you don't have a strong purpose, you don't have a strong commitment, then when you get started in the first bit of you put that camera up in front of your face, or you know, you go to step out of your comfort zone and there's not a strong purpose, there's not a strong commitment, you're going to fall over. And that's in anything in life. So again, the lesson we learned a little bit earlier, diving deeper and deeper and deeper, layer by layer, you know, find out what the purpose is, find out what the intention is, have a discussion with someone, get someone to ask you some questions that go a bit deeper. You know, wake up in the morning and write out, close your eyes for a little while, visualize it, and then write it down on a piece of paper. So that's where purpose is really, really, really important. So visual storytelling. So why is it so important? Why is video so important in today's day? One of the biggest reasons is it does the work for you that you don't necessarily have to, you know, do for yourself. So I'll share a little story. Today I was doing some flyer drops, letter drops. I was dropping some letters, you know, door to door. The other day I was doing some door knocking. Now that is great work, great confronting work. Very, very much gets you out of the comfort zone. But if you put a video up, and in this video, when I first came down to this part of the world, Albany, put this video up, put a bit of Facebook dollars behind it, contacted a marketing agency. This video was getting me clients, connections, was making me known in the community 6 months, a year and a half down the track, even to the point where I walked into a tavern and 3 people recognized me from that one video. So that's what video can do for you. So it might not be, you know, getting you the money straight away. It might be spending money straight away. But when you're working out what your visual story is and you're telling it in a good way and you're putting some marketing behind getting it out there, your visual story can actually do work for you to the point where you can step into an environment and you're already known and people already, there's that warm introduction. And we all know from that warm introduction, from that first step of networking, that's when we start to actually build onto that relationship. But if I don't know you, I'm very cautious around you. I'm very, you know, I step back a little bit. I'm not going to dive into business. But if I feel like I know you because I've seen you blast your content, as Nick was saying, up everywhere online, I feel like I know you, then I'm able to connect to you a little bit quicker and a little bit easier and a little bit deeper. So we're able to go to those layers deeper and deeper quicker. So that's another big reason of video. And not just in video, even just in your introduction. So the one story of the door knocking, one of the big tips that I had was I had something to share, something of value, because I knew I wasn't going to do it without having a purpose. I wasn't going to go out and do door knocking without having something that I could, hey, I'm going to give you some value. I'm going to help you out. So knock, knock, knock. Hey, I've got this valuable thing that you'll find interesting. If you won't, that's fine. I'll be on my way. But hey, and work out how to get straight into a connective conversation, a connective story. So that's something that can help you in those environments when you're face to face with someone. And then also when you're recording the video, it's the same thing. Get into a connective story, get into a connective conversation, talk to them, speak like you're speaking opposite them. And then you're going to pull out, okay, this person's talking to me, but they're not talking at me with some pitch. They're talking to me. They're extracting a relatable story that I can connect with. And it actually pulls a little bit more out of me, and it pulls a little bit more, and I can start thinking about my own story and my own life and how this person can help me out. So when you're going out there and you're, creating and deciding your visual story, the kind of 3 steps, and it's the same steps that with every exercise that I teach in my book, Decide Your Destiny. First step is to unlearn the programming, unlearn, Nick was talking about it earlier. Back in his day, they would say, what was it? Oh, can you put the video together? Can you get the video, get the video sorted? In today's day, it's, oh, you're good with that tech stuff. Can you get it sorted? And, in today's world, I know, videos for younger people, videos for, getting my story out there, sharing my stories, it's for, storytellers, authors, other people. So you've got to unlearn all those false beliefs that basically stand as a blockade for you to start along your journey of extracting your story and extracting your message. And then once you start learning about story, you start learning about, information that helps you to tell your story a little bit, little tips that maybe it is waking up in the morning and journaling that helps you. Then repeat it until it seems like, oh, I've heard this, I've heard this bit of information. I've learned this already. You've got to learn it until you truly know it. And when you truly know it is when you're actually implementing it. And then you've got to revise. And then that's when you step back and you look and you go, okay, am I happy with my brand? One of the tools that was shared earlier was about your brand colors, So we've got so many AI tools that can help us. Am I happy with my message? Am I happy with how my story is coming across? Am I happy with, the videos that I'm creating, or the photos, or the copy that I'm creating, or how I sound as a brand? So you revise that, and then you do the loop again. Is there something I need to unlearn? Oh, I thought I could only talk about this topic, because I'm in this business. How can I cross over into another topic? How can I reach other people by talking about topics that they're interested in? And so that's how the whole cycle works. And an edutainer. So this is where, and we've seen it today, where you mix education and entertainment. I think this is deeply psychological because people want to feel like they're progressing, they're taking steps forward. This better be useful to me. This better help me. I'm too busy. I don't have time. So people want to feel like they're productive. They're moving forward. Whatever they're doing moves them forward. Sometimes to the point so much that they won't relearn, do the repetition of learning a lesson over and over again, and knock at that with that shovel until they get to the gold of that information. But they want to progress. They want to feel like they're moving forward, and we want to be entertained. We don't want to be spoken at or spoken down to, or to just be all business. Although sometimes people think that I'm all business, and I'm sure many of the people on the call today, by their spouse or family members, get those sort of comments as well. But you want a bit of fun in it, and the community Nick's created is that it creates a bit of fun. Take a little bit of piss out of yourself, have a joke or two, and learn at the same time. So that's the kind of role online. And when you're telling your story and sharing stories, try to be an edutainer. We get so, blasted by news and, controversy and chaos and the terrors. Where do you think people are going to go to? If you come to them with a story about, oh, well, it's me, this horrible thing happened to me, and then you just unload on them, what do you think that's going to do? people won't connect to that because, yeah, they're just so used to that, and they can only take so much of it. So you need to be coming as the edutainer. You might want to educate them and say, hey, listen, if you eat that food, it won't be so good. If you take that step, it won't be so good. But work out the flow, work out the fun way of doing it, work out the way that you can relate and connect to the human being. Because as much as we've got the machines and we've got AI and we've got all these supportive tools, we've just been through, 4 years ago through 2020, people want to connect with other people. And people are, might say people are stupid, or people are, back to their caveman psychology and all this sort of stuff. But people have intuition, and people can read, and they can suss you out and suss what your intentions are. So really focusing when you're sharing your story, how is this story connecting to someone? And once it connects to someone, how is it helping them? And try and figure out that edutainer avatar. And Nick Cree is a great example of this. Think about other people that you can see that are great edutainers. They put on an education seminar, they put on a summit, they put on something, but then it's also entertaining with a purpose. All right. And so the other tip, part of telling your story, telling your visual story, is to become a headline hero. Now, this is where you can embrace current trends. So a big trend at the moment is AI, is technology, is digital tools. So how are you going to embrace those trends? How are you going to embrace trends? And because at the end of the day, instead of sharing your story and going, hey, look, I want to tell you, and I've found this along my journey, hey, I want to talk all about destiny. I want to dive right deep into your life's destiny. And they look at you and they go, oh, but you're only a young buck. What do you know about destiny? What are you talking about, fella? And so you might be able to connect to something that's going on in the current times. Isn't it a shame that that suicide writes this? Isn't it a shame that 75% of people say that they don't love what they do, they're not passionate about their job? Did you hear that so and so, many people have depression and this and that? And then that's the problem. And the solution is, well, I've got a book, or I've got a course, or I've got a story, or I've got a camp, or whatever it is out there that can help this. I take kids away for a week, and we go and we get back amongst the nature, and we get them away from the digital and all that sort of stuff. So you're able to talk about a current headline and then leverage that headline, because the headline's already in their head. They're already thinking about what's going on, and you can actually connect. It's relatable. Did you hear? Oh, did you see? Have you been following? And then you can relate it to, okay, this is what I do. This is how I help people. And that's a great way of allowing other content, whether it's print or visual or digital, other content, to be able to do some of the legwork for you when you're connecting with people. All right. And so basically the things that I'm talking about, and when you're telling your story, it's really down to connection. That's the most important thing. So when you are sharing your story, whether it's a video, a visual story, whether it is a written story, a book, whether it's face to face with someone, how can you get to connection as quick as possible? Because once you get to connection, that's when they're actually going to feel like, okay, I'll open up a little bit more. I don't know if it's just me, but I've noticed people, I think, have become more guarded and more protective. We're more protective of our data, more protective of our time, more protective of what's this person going to try and sell me, and we're having to give away nearly everything for free to get some trust and those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, if you can connect with people and you can be relatable, then that's where you can actually build some trust. And so that's where I think that we can all tell a better story if we're focusing on our purpose. And also, what is the purpose of the story? What is why am I telling the story? I can probably bet, and I'll open up to the floor in a second, but I can probably bet we've all had people just unload words to us or spoken at us. and we're almost wondering, wait, what's the purpose? What's the point of this? And I think, especially as business owners, productive, or, I've been told, sometimes you wanted to fix things, or you wanted to solve things, or you wanted to move on to the next thing, or produce something. And so your brain's wired like that. And so sometimes some people just want to share and unload. But if you've got a purpose to the story that you're telling, and you can actually lead someone along, whether it's the hero's journey arc, whatever it is, if you can problem solution, if you can lead them along your story and there's a reason to your story, or there's an endpoint, then you'll be more of a captivating speaker. You'll be more of someone who's captivating in the stories that you're telling. It's like almost telling someone this whole story and then leaving them at the edge of the cliff. And then they go, wait a minute, it's a cliffhanger. Where's the end of it? So just think of that when you're telling your stories. And that's a little bit of a presentation, guys. I'd love to throw it open to the floor and get some interaction of questions, whether it's around video marketing, writing your story, photography, anything along those lines.
I've got a question, Kyle, as people are sort of thinking of their questions. Stories are, well, certainly in my mind, they're a great tool there for marketing. And it's almost like you're not doing marketing when you're telling stories. You're not selling when you're telling a story. People get engaged in it all. Have you got any sort of frameworks or processes around it? Because there are stories where people ramble, but there are stories there that take people on that journey, or take them, from one feeling, I think, to another feeling. Have you got any sort of frameworks or processes around how help people to do that?
Yeah, so I'd probably say one tip that I can say that I've found useful, and it's just like almost putting a doorstop in your mind. One of the things where we're telling stories and we're sharing stories and we're talking to someone, and we might have a relatable story to them. But say if they're saying, oh, I had a rough childhood, or I had a problem with my business coach, or I had a heart challenge or something like that. We might in our minds go, oh my God, and we will, oh my God, I really want to tell them about mine, and we will think like, oh, this is relatable. I want to tell them about my story. But what you're doing is you're going to overlap their story, and it's not going to build connection. So even though there's a moment where it seems like there's some relatability there, you need to give that person the floor and let them tell their story. So, people call it, a word for it is trauma bonding. And there's times where you go, oh my God, let me tell you let me unload it on you. And it's like, no. Like once you do that, the person will get the perception that you think your story is more important than theirs. So I think that's one doorstep to really hold in your mind when you're thinking about telling stories. A framework would probably, it might sound a bit hard, but it comes back to feeling as well. And, it would be hard to tell everybody, let's get in our feeling, let's kumbaya on the live. But, we do have a deeper technology in ourselves of working out, okay, is this someone I can go, like kind of the pace of it? Is this a moment where I can go and share a little bit more about my childhood and how it related to this thing that this person's talking about? So working out the pacing of the conversation, and when it's important to implement a story. Because if you've got 5 people in a room and you're doing a sales call, you're doing some sort of meeting, and you just blurt out a story, oh my God, this time when I was younger, and then that's not the time, but if you're more one-on-one with someone, and they're not opening up enough, the story can be used to allow them to open up more. So I think in marketing and sales, in those sorts of things where you're wanting to extract more and open up more, and especially with my photography and videography, I was wanting the person, the subject in front of me to open up. So it wasn't about me, it was about me capturing them opening up more. And so in order for me to do that, a little bit of a carrot, a little bit of celery, just bit by bit, just feed them little bits, and then eventually they'll start opening up into a flower, and then you just sit back and you listen and you just observe and you let them talk.
Awesome. Peter's got his hand up.
Carl, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate what you've said today. Very much.
Thank you, mate.
When you are talking to people and you ask them about their story, I think it's the height of rudeness to start talking about your story when you've already asked them about their story.
Yep.
And the more space you can give them, the more time you can give them, the more times you can put the ball in their court, the more they will feel that you are genuine, you are authentic, and you really are doing the most magical thing of all. You are trying to understand them. Would you agree with that?
Yep. 100%. Yeah. 100%.
Thanks.
And another thing there is if you you can jump in if you repeat back little pieces, and not just pieces of like things that aren't very important, but important aspects of that story, and you repeat it back to them. You'll see it in front of you. Their eyes will start to light up and go, "Oh, you're actually listening." Because you might be there, your eyes might be there, you might be nodding, you might be smiling, but then when you just relay a bit of information back to them that they shared, oh, it's like you said when you were 14, was it, when this happened? Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh,
that's positive listening.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it is. There's also as well as that, if you show that you understand without necessarily going into your story, but it's not the first time I've heard this, so I have had experiences. I understand how you're going or how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Either that, or you're going to say, I have no idea how hard it can be for you.
Yeah.
So tell me more.
Yeah. Exactly.
And also, how did it make you feel?
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Kyle, also, sorry, is that me? Yes, I can talk.
Yes. Sir.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Kyle. I was interested in you talking about your door knocking and making connection that way. Are you actually talking about walking down roads and knocking on doors and saying, "Hi, I'm Kyle"? Or is this a metaphorical door knocking? Or businesses are walking along, going into businesses and saying hi and having a listen to what they're doing and what they need?
No, literal door knocking and popping into business owners, and I think that is such an important skill because we've got so many great tools at our hands, but don't allow that to I think the human connection, the skin to skin, the contact that can help you. Again, it can help because there's nothing more pressured than having to, tell me a little bit more about you, and you're literally opposite, a complete stranger, you're going. So, so I've been doing a lot of door knocking lately, and knocking into business owners, and but it's always very important. And it's the same thing as, go have 50 calls today, go do 50 calls today. And I know you'll create an opportunity in your business. And you're like, okay, but what do I say? What is it? As long as you have a purpose, then you've got something that you can actually start rolling with. And that can even be your pitch can have a little bit of a story in it, So
I particularly, that really kind of stuck out to me because I love that. I've been a business owner in the old days when there was none of this Facebook stuff, and how I've always made beautiful contacts and wonderful connections was through going to do we used to call them a go-see in advertising, and you probably know that too.
Yep.
Being in that field, but doing a go-see, and going meet people, shake their hands, see if you get on, and getting that real initial vibe, which I think is really important. So that really appealed to me. I thought, do you know what, I'm going to give that a go. I much prefer that than actually using social media. So that real face-to-face.
100%. And what you can do and how far you can extend out and how much impact you can have through online marketing, social media and video and those sorts of things is tremendous. But another thing I
Sure.
think today is that lots of people are heading towards there. So it's almost leaving a bit of an open market to do
Yeah.
old ways of marketing. And
Yeah.
so what I've started doing as well is sending lots of handwritten letters. So trying to set a certain amount of target a day, write handwritten letters, because someone can literally have a look at it and go, "Oh, you took the time to write, in your in your messy 5-year-old handwriting, but at least you tried." So,
Yeah.
it shows effort, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's right. And I think for also, I mean, for right now where I'm just starting out, I can only cope with so many people, and as I'm learning my business and all of those other bits that seem to come along as well. So I think, that just that way of door knocking, I really like that. So I
Yeah,
think that's on my list. Yeah, thank you very much.
that's all right.
I think one of the problems I might have, Kyle, is if I write handwritten letters, people would think I've given them a prescription or something. My writing's so bad it
Me
looks like a
too.
doctor's.
Me too.
Oh, mate, I tell you, I think I'm up there with you.
Yeah. So I think I might have cut someone else off. So who else was talking?
Very quick, very quick.
Peter,
Kyle,
yes.
how do you feel about the idea? I mean, right now, when people are giving out things like lead magnets and that sort of stuff, and their PDFs or their videos or whatever it is, most of the time people ignore them completely. But if they get something in the snail mail, in the actual mail, it's a huge difference. What are your thoughts about that?
I use the snail mail, as you put it. Yeah, I still use that. So I think again, those places are maybe being more neglected. So but I'm in a bit of a regional area, but I've been doing letter drops, and I notice in the letterboxes, like, whether it's in the afternoon, that there's not a lot of stuff in that letterbox. So the competition maybe isn't there as much, and people are reading it. But it's also, I think, another big thing is generational. So, working out who you're targeting, and I'm really looking forward to Nick's up and coming speaker that are going to talk about how to connect with younger generations and demographics, because it's almost like a different language. You've got to speak a different language. So if in your business, I want to speak to this person, then you almost do have to kind of play by certain games and certain rules in that world. So for me, I want to connect to business owners. I'm going to show up to a lot of networking groups. I'm going to show up to, the Rotaries and the commerce and these different sort of functions, where they're going out to sponsorships and work out what are their charities and see how I can get involved. So that's, if I'm focused on business owners, if I'm focusing on, selling homes, then a lot of the people that are selling homes are a bit older than maybe that demographic that I'm focusing on maybe younger business owners. So then letter door knocking, letter dropping, those sorts of things. If I've got a younger generation that I want to target, then I've got to figure out a different way of connecting to them. So that's really important. And also working out, okay, am I actually wanting to connect to the parent who's going to connect to them, or am I wanting to connect to them directly? And so when you're thinking about your story and where it's going to go, just really think about who.
One of the things you said, Kyle, that stood out for me was when you're having a conversation with someone, then you get these thoughts that go in your head that where you've got your story and you want to jump in and tell your story because this reminded you of a time where something similar happened, or you felt the same way, you had the same emotion. But one of the keys that I like in stories is that if you can evoke that in other people. So if you're telling stories, with whatever it is that you do, and I'm a great one for telling other people's stories. I don't have any interesting stories at all, so it's always good to grab other people's stories. You will have noticed at the beginning I told the story about a friend of mine who went into get a surfboard fin. That's not my story at all. So I can use other people's stories, but if you can get people to think, that's I remember a time like that, or that's just like me. That's the phrase that I like. Oh, that's just like me. Then that's when sales don't have to happen, because people start to enter a conversation willingly, but also unconsciously.
Yeah, 100%. And a great point you mentioned there was telling other people's stories. It's almost like using a third person. So if you're going to go door knock, it's great to have a male and a female, because you've got two different energies and you've got that third person. So if you're telling a story and you're telling someone else's story, it's not you directly. So it's less confrontational and it's a little bit more, oh, what happened to this person? Oh, just like you, or they were very similar to you, or they're in a similar position as you. And then it's a different person. It's not me, I was, the same. So you've got to do this now because it's a different person. It's removed. So, yeah.
Can I ask, part of your journey has been telling stories through visual media, whether that be video or what's the other one? Video or still pictures. Photography.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Lost for words there.
That's right.
So when you're telling other people's stories through that media there, that's or is it quite different to telling your own story? And how do you sort of elicit their story out when you're doing that?
Yeah, so it is very different, and I think learning how to kind of go from behind the camera to in front of the camera was a big overcoming, or big learning. But telling their stories, so I ended up, my target audience I found out through doing lots and lots of shoots, and it ended up being middle-aged women, and I just resonated and connected to their business story and what they were doing and those sorts of things. But so in that, I found that, and I'll try and be very politically correct. I found a lot of them weren't as very kind, and I think middle-aged men would be the same. Weren't very kind about the comments about their look, kind about how they were showing up. So there was a lot of not so much photography and videography, but almost best friend support. Let's get a glass of wine at the bar. Let's chat. So a lot of that sort of supportive work that had to be done. So for me, in order to get their story out, you really had to firstly make it an environment that they were actually happy to share their story in. So I couldn't be the cameraman who's the weirdo cameraman with this big freaking brick thing that's going to put it in my face and I'm going to crap myself and I already hate how I look and all these sorts of things. I had to work out how to put the camera down and connect to the human being and just ask them questions about their business story, getting them off the topics of, oh my God, I should have got Botox, look at me, or whatever the story is, but getting them off those stories and onto, oh, why did you start your business? It was for your young kid. Oh, you want to set them up for a better life. Okay. And you just get them kind of a little bit of momentum into their passion, their purpose. And then I almost feel, I don't know, it could be a bit woo-woo, but when they're communicating that's going to come through their eyes and through their posture and through the visuals of how they're going to show up. So you got to extract what you want. You want to extract, oh yeah, it sucks getting old. I mean, I've noticed wrinkles on my head. Or do you want to keep talking about that and extract that energy, or do you want to extract the different energy?
Oh, how interesting is that? So imagine if we did that in business, just as a normal way of doing things. So you did it. It's quite starkly obvious when you've got a camera there. But imagine if we just did it sort of every day in the interactions that we had with people in business and in life, how different that might be. Yep.
And you got to do it without being too obvious. It's like, oh, you don't want to talk about my looks, do you? And like, no. You got to. It's got to kind of bake into how you do it. But you can find ways to easily, just be that curious kid that we talked about. That kind of, oh, you're an accountant. Like, tell me, like, I mean, I don't even understand that world. Tell me about that world. Just be curious. And if it's something they've been doing for a long time, my God, you give them the floor, you give them the mic, they're going to run with it.
Mm-hmm. May Rose, you've got your hand up.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Kyle. Love your work.
Hello.
I perhaps have a rather obscure question, but how do you diplomatically ask some person who loves the sound of their own voice and is taking over the place and you can feel everyone else shifting? How do you gently or diplomatically tell them to shut up or
Are you talking about me again, no, right?
To say I just ran out of film.
We did have an incident and particularly when you're at a presentation or you're running a webinar and you've always got one extrovert that has everything to say, and there's a few people you can see would have a much more interesting story to listen to. So how do you diplomatically, I'm not that diplomatic, you see, and I need a way to say, you know, shut your face, Doris, and give someone else a chance, you know. So
oh goodness, thank you for that. That's a great question. I love it. So hopefully it's not about anybody on the call, like Nick was saying. Well, I think the one of the things that I've done in the past has been so not focusing on them and their annoyance as much, as hard as it can be. And you know, we probably have it in our family. We probably have it in different areas where we've got that person who just doesn't know when to, hey, read the room, read the vibe, you know, be a little bit more connected and collective and pass the conversation over. What I do is I would bring their awareness to it. So if you're, like you said, you're at a conference and say, you know, you've got to interview 5 people and they're talking and talking and talking, bring their awareness to where they are, to what's going on, to the next person that's got to tell their story in a polite way, you know. So you can bring their awareness, and actually Paul did a great job of it, was saying, you know, oh, the film's run out. You can be playful. You can actually like have a comment like that's kind of cheeky and a little bit fun, and it almost gets them to snap and go, oh my God, I do this all the time. And if you've got a talker, they're you know, probably pretty used to the fact that they're a talker, you know. And so sometimes they're not as upset when you confront them. It's just about how you confront them. And then there's a little reminder that goes off in their head and goes, oh, I'm doing it again. Oh, here I go, Doris. I'm doing it again, you know. So
Doris with no filters. There's always one in the crowd, isn't there?
There is.
That's great feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, and if they're an extrovert, they're really, you know, and I could be a bit of an extrovert, but they're really connected and passionate and alive and looking at everything. So it's easy to distract them or take their awareness to something else in the room or something, you know. Oh, do you see Jane there? Jane's, do you know Jane's story? No, I don't. Oh, well, Jane is, and you can almost, you know, start bringing her along. So, yeah.
Or the building's on fire, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you need to set a building on fire, I won't tell anyone.
Thanks.
I've always found giving them a job to do.
Yes.
Give them a job to do that sort of requires a bit of thinking and capability, because generally we can only do one thing at a time. So if they're distracted with a job to do, then that works too.
I love that. That's brilliant.
Excellent. All right. If we've got any more questions, if we haven't, we're pretty close to time. So we will wrap up, and then I was going to say you can probably go and get some something to eat, but most of us have probably done that on the call. But we do have a prize here tonight. So thanks very much, Kyle, for sharing your sort of wisdom in storytelling. I know that for those of you that do know Kyle, or even if you don't know Kyle, he's written a book called Decide Your Destiny, probably the youngest person to write a memoir that I've known. But in there's a whole lot of good life lessons about, you know, sort of decisions you make in life. And so, you know, a story about his life as well too. So, well, we're going to grab that and you'll learn a wee bit more about stories. And that picture behind me, although he hasn't talked about it too much, just a wee bit, he does talk about that in the book there, but it's really pivotal to his story as well too. So let's give Kyle a round of applause. Thank you very much for sharing with us tonight. And we do have a prize tonight as well too. So we've got our traditional wheel of names. What's the prize, Kyle?
So the prize is a paperback copy of Decide Your Destiny. If you can handle the shipping, I will send it to you free.
Fabulous. In fact, we'll handle the shipping, Kyle. So and then they can get it for free.
Done. Oh, I'd love to actually get over to Brisbane. If there's someone in Brisbane, I'd love to bring it to you in person. I've been meaning to get over. So yeah.
So hand delivered. Okay, you'll get a hand delivered book.
by me or another hand.
Excellent. We've got a couple of overseas people here as well too. So,
Okay.
yeah, you've got a possible trip to Thailand or to Philippines to deliver it. All right, let's spin the wheel of names and see who our lucky winner is tonight. All right, virtual drum roll, please. Everybody's name is in here that's been here tonight. Remember, you have to be here in the room to win it. And our winner is Paul Sheaf. There you go. Are you going to New South Wales anytime soon, Kyle?
It's a plan, but I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you nonetheless, Paul.
I've got to learn to read then.
There you go. There's no excuses standing behind a video camera. Now you've got text.
I've got it on audio, so I can send you the audiobook too. So there's no.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, well done. There you go.
Don't forget when you do get over here, there's always a cup of coffee on.
100%.
Excellent. All right. Well, that is our session tonight. So thank you, Kyle, for coming on and sharing your experience and wisdom around storytelling. And congratulations to Paul for being a winner. If you've enjoyed this tonight, it will be up on the Business Owners Smashing It Online YouTube channel. Tomorrow, we've dropped that link into chat. And of course, the apps and tools, they'll be up on the Facebook group, the Business Owners Smashing Along Facebook group. So if you're not a member there, go and join. I've seen a couple of people joined up there tonight. Actually, I should say too, Kyle, if people do want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can follow me on social media, Kyle Spyrides, and anyone else that would love to get the first 3 chapters of Decide Your Destiny for free. There is a link that I put, and I'll just put it back in there. And you can have that. But yeah, YouTube, social media, anywhere you'd like to get into contact with me, and I will happily connect.
Fabulous. And now is a really good time to save the chat. So if you want those apps and tools, the link that Kyle has just dropped in there for his book as well too. The way to save chat is first of all to open it with the chat icon down on your toolbar, and then at the top, I think it's on the top right-hand corner, depending on what version of Zoom you have. It could either be at the bottom or it could be at the top right-hand corner. If you click the 3 little dots, you can save the chat. And remember, when you do save it, there is a link. Well, often there is a link. Didn't work for me. Oh, there it is. There is a link that comes up. And if you click on that link, it'll take you directly to where you saved it on your computer. So you don't have to go and search for it. All right, well, that is our show tonight. Thank you, everyone, for turning up for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Kyle, for coming to share your wisdom. I think it's probably getting dark over your side of the nation now. And for the rest of us, it is dark. So go and have a good night, and we'll see you back here again next week.